Good evening, YouTubers. It's the Old Atheist again, and I want to talk to you about a book. It's a book that is widely read around the world and probably one of the most misunderstood books in the world. I actually have two books that are very much like that. The first one is this one. This is one of the most misread, misunderstood, and misinterpreted books ever written. Probably the number one most misinterpreted book, because people have built their lives around what it says without actually studying what it says. You see, I don't come to my atheism through ignorance. I come to my atheism through a careful study of the options, and this is one of the options I have studied. I have studied it very carefully. A book like this does not get nice and worn out like this from being ignored and sat on a shelf. I've read this book. I have studied this book. I've underlined passages in it, and I use it for more than just quote mining, which, by the way, theists are very good at pulling quotes out of context. One of the books they love to pull quotes out of context is this one. Most of them have not read it, have not studied it. Now, both of these books have something in common. They're written in rather arcane language from centuries ago, in this case only a century and a half ago. Sometimes a little bit hard to read, sometimes a bit wordy. The difference between the two books, people claim this to be the absolute truth. This is a book of observations. Charles Darwin didn't come out anywhere in this book and say, this is the way the universe works. He said, hey, I've made these observations, and I've written them down, and here are my conclusions. Now it's up to the reader to determine whether or not my conclusions have the ring of truth to them. And the idea that organisms change over time, which we have seen. We see it happening all the time. Organisms do change, and that's what this word evolution means. It means change over time. That is a fact. Things change over time. The mechanism and the amount, that is still subject to debate. The causes are still subject to debate. This book, on the other hand, says, this is the truth, even the parts that contradict. And yes, this book is loaded with contradictions. And before I start getting all of these little notes at the bottom, all the comments at the bottom that you're going to read down here, check it out. Do some homework first. This is not a wonderfully consistent book where everything agrees with everything else. Read this. Study it. I can think of no greater weapon against theism than the Holy Bible. In particular, the King James Version. So before you start writing little comments down here, sending me personal, private notes and that sort of thing, really think about it. I've read that, and it didn't convince me. Do you, as a fallible human being, think that you can do any better?